How are we doing? We all right? We all good? It's a stream, and we're gonna hop over to there, and then add this back in. That's how you know it's a Final Fantasy VIII stream. Yeah. So last time we did a sort of rewrite, which was minimum viable product. It was. We rewrote the story by basically cutting out everything we didn't need, which included at least 2 characters and a whole bunch of plot points which are unnecessary. This time we were going to talk about Ragdoll's ideas, but I feel, I mean, we can still a little bit, but they're not going to be here for these streams for a while, so we're probably not going to focus on it. We'll just have a bit of a chat about stuff. And while that's happening, I'm going to doodle, because I'm in the mood to doodle. I'm in the moodle to doodle. So yeah, I'm just going to be drawing some things from Final Fantasy VIII that I didn't have a chance to draw in the draw through because they weren't relevant. So yeah, I'm just gonna doodle some doodles, noodles and doodling. Yeah. So it's a new week, and it's a week of apparently, as far as I'm concerned, very low motivations. I think Jerry's right-handed, yeah. How many left-handed characters are there in Final Fantasy games? I don't know. I believe there was a mechanic in one of the earlier games, not sure which, where the handedness of your character mattered, where you put the things, their weapons and stuff. It wasn't a good mechanic, so it didn't come back. It's just annoying. It's just another thing to have to worry about without actually being in any way useful. A little bit of game design advice. If you're going to add in a complicated mechanic in a game, make it useful. Don't make it just annoying. Otherwise, people are just not gonna pay all that much attention to it. No, all these copyrighted things. That'll do. No, I'm gonna want that to be further forwards, really. Here's the shoulder, here's the hand. And what way around would it be? The thumb would be on the outside. So the elbow would be about there. Probably a bit higher, actually. This is important stuff. Vitally so. Yeah, so what is there to say? Generally think, I suppose, like... So Ragnar had this idea, which I thought was quite cool. Which is the idea of... It's a chib. There is a chib here. How do chib? You're not late, don't worry about it. Definitely didn't lose track of time while drawing motivated Jessie topless. Okay. I mean, to be fair, you've drawn Rabbit and Slick, might as well. Yeah. Don't worry about it, nothing's happened yet. He says as if anything is actually going to happen at any point. Yeah, I was just explaining about Ragdoll's knight idea. The idea that the Sorceress's knight is more than just something that Kyle delusionally daydreamed through mind control. That there is actually precedent for it and effect. And this idea that a sorceress can essentially sort of nominate, magically speaking, can nominate knights, people to protect them, and as a consequence they gain sort of elevated magical powers beyond that which a normal human would be able to. And they become more powerful and so on and so forth. but it also can have the potential to sort of mess with their minds a bit. And a story can happen. You do really like that. I like the idea. I like the idea for several reasons. One, it's a cool idea on its own. Like, you could probably just build a story around that, to be honest. Screw Final Fantasy VIII. That's just a good starting point for a story. But the other thing I like about it is it takes something in the game that is ultimately completely pointless and gives it a purpose, which we ascertained last time is most of the story. Most of the story is just, it's, you know, it's a thing, deal with it. And that feels like a shame. I feel like there should be, you know, consequences for things that happen in the story. And, you know, precedent for when significant things happen in the story, or, you know, at least reason. I'll take reason over nothing, but precedent would also be nice. You know, telegraph something when it's going to happen, and then you're like, oh wow, wow, rather than, sorry, what? So yeah, I think Ragdoll sort of had a bunch of good ideas as to how to implement that. So like, Jimmy would have been sort of accidentally knighted by 5-year-old Dishy when he was protecting Winhill, because he's protecting Winhill. You know, it's like, of course she's gonna do that. It's like, oh, here's the person looking after me. It's like, one interesting thing I found, just as a side note, the idea, because last time we mentioned the idea of love, and how the love story in a game doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, romantic love or anything like that. You did love, it's funny that Dishy isn't a sorceress, but everyone just assumed she was, up to the point that Ragdoll gave her a knife. Yeah, I know. It's like, again, there's no real reason for her not to be, I guess, but just whatever. Sorceress, like the reason that she isn't a sorceress is because it would require more explanation to explain why no one's focusing on her being a sorceress. Like, so they just either didn't bother or didn't want to change the story that they'd come up with about a lineage of sorceresses when there's actually 2 around. You know, it's like, laziness is basically the reason. But yeah, so love stories in Final Fantasy games. For reasons, for top secret hush hush reasons, I was looking up the story to Final Fantasy VI, because honestly, of all the 2D Final Fantasy games, that one, you always forget how the story goes. Even though apparently it's the best. I disagree. I like 5. But the thing I found quite interesting about that was sort of reading up the ending. Is there's a bit at the end, like there tends to be in these sorts of things, of like, oh, you need to hold on to love in order to survive going through the void or through time or whatever it is that happens to be in this particular game. And the main character holds on to, you know, needs to fix on a love thing, so that they can stay, you know, alive, basically, as these stories go. The whole Kingdom Hearts, you know, love and friendship thing. But what the interesting thing about Final Fantasy VI is that the love in that game isn't romantic. What she ends up doing is she ends up thinking about the love that she had for a bunch of children that she was looking after for like a year, in a little town that had been destroyed. And I thought that's really nice. Well, that's a good idea. You can have that. You know, there is a character in the game who could have been the male love interest, but they just didn't, because they had no chemistry. Like, so they decided to fixate on a much more sort of wholesome love of like, hey, this person spent a good chunk of their life looking after these children, and they mean a lot to them, and that's cool. I like that. Posture, thank you, bot. Anyway, I'm just going to draw some stuff from Final Fantasy VIII that I didn't have a chance to draw. during the draw through. So this is Cheery using one of her limits where she fires a jive from a launcher on her arm. Yeah, that happens. She has very strong arms. Oh no, she has the turtleneck. Also, apparently wings. Apparently we found that out. She has wings after she becomes a sorceress when she does a limit. Yeah, there's a doodle. Yeah, how's everybody's week beginning? Hope it's going well. I don't know what I'm doing today, by the way. This stream. I'm in a weird mood today. Haven't really been in the mood to do a lot of things today, so I don't know how this stream's gonna go. I'm just gonna doodle stuff. She's a magical Goyle. Yes. Also, hi Miss, how you doing? You know, I just sort of thought about that. It's like the limit breaks of all the characters. Weird moods abound today. Is it a weird mood day? You been having a weird mood as well? Everybody's allowed to have a weird mood today. It's well, you're allowed to have a weird mood any day. You're not in control of your moods, but you know, complete free pass. No one can complain. By which I mean no one can complain about the consequences of your weird mood. You can complain about your weird mood all you like. You've had a weird mood as well. It's a weird mood Tuesday. Moods day. Moods day. Mood. Yeah. Sometimes I think if I just make noises for long enough, a pun will come out of it. Doesn't always happen like that. Strange. Yeah, so the limit breaks of the characters. Woomped. WMT. Having a stroke. I mean, I think I've been having a stroke for the last 2 years. It's just a very slow one. Limits. I've already mentioned how Jenny's limit is basically the ability to summon any piece of magic she wants, including the ability to just end the game. Literally has a move called The End. So she's arguably the most powerful magic user in the game, and she's not a sorceress. There's also Velma. Oh, hang on. There's also Velma, who has the ability to use magic that she's sort of learned from enemies and stuff, so she can... I don't know quite what's going on with this face. Whatever, it's Jenny. She does what she does. Jenny's style has never been fixed. It's fine. No, I don't know. Hang on. Brain keeps removing Velma from your memory. That's because we deleted her from the story last time. What is her face? I don't know. I'm trying to do it looking up. Like that. But for some reason my brain just couldn't draw. There we go, second time is charm. Right. Jenny is a pinball through and through. Yeah, I don't really remember how the end goes too much, other than I think it's like it looks like, you know, and then they lived happily ever after, and there's a rainbow, and you know, forest critters running around, you know, being happy. It's sort of like, you know, a weird end credits sequence of like Shrek or something. So yeah, she can do that. Velma can do her enemy magic stuff. Cheery's and the male characters are all their moves are just physical. You know, a lot of punching, a lot of slashing the sword, a lot of shooting the gun. Cheery's is just Jive. It's just Jive. Like, Jive comes along and does a thing. And it's like, Cheery's not even doing this. This is Jive. Yeah, her whole thing is like, you know, she can collect magazines, which can teach you, tells you how to teach your pets tricks. And you do that. You learn tricks from magazines, and Jive does them. Sparkle, sparkle. So yeah, I was just thinking about it. Character is arguably the most powerful character in the game, what with her being a sorceress and whatnot. She doesn't even do anything. You know, limit. Boots. That's wonderful drawing I've done. Punching is manly. Unless you're Strong Jessie. Strong Jessie does punch. Strong Jessie was the precursor to Pikachu. Although arguably Sabin was the precursor to Strong Jessie. And Yang was the precursor to Sabin. Can we go further? I haven't played Final Fantasy 2. So. And the rest of them are all job systems. So I guess punching is East Asian? I guess. We've gone from punching is manly to punching is womanly to punching is feral to punching is primarily dominated by people of East Asia. Final Fantasy's weird. You're watching a stream today about how to make brushes in Procreate and learn that the iPad comes with a shape library. It broke your brain. And a texture library. Ah. As you do. Oh yeah, I was going to work out how to make this pencil into a thing. Okay, I'm going to write that down. See if I can get you this pencil, because it's nice. I need a pen. Ironically, I need some sort of writing implement to indicate that I need to send you a pencil. Righto. It's on the post-it note of doom. Your sparkle brush reminded me of it. I think it's like the first particle brush that is in Clip Studio. Have I ever made my own? I thought I tried to make my own once. Like a chain or something. I don't think it succeeded. Anyway, it's a punch journey that makes no sense. Perfect for a Final Fantasy. What comes after this, though? There isn't really one in... Well, I mean... I guess the closest you can have in 9 is that punching is for ginger people. Punching is for redheads. Final Fantasy X is... Punching is for... small anime girls, I guess. I don't really know about the ones beyond that. What I'm trying to say is that if you look over the course of all of the games and average it out, punching is for everyone. Everybody punch. So yeah, so what else? I can do a Velma one, why not? Velma has a bunch of abilities that can be learned from enemies. Let's do an unflattering one. Everyone can do a punch. It's a treat. Punches for everyone. Hi, Kira. How is Akira doing? Is Akira doing well? I hope so. That's the end of that song. Oh, I'm just an improvisation king. By which I mean I get everyone else to do it for me. That's anatomy, right? That's how anatomy works, yeah? Yeah, sure? Yeah? We going with that? We're going with that. Cool. I don't know. That's bad breath. She has a move called bad breath. She learned it from the Marlboros. Drawing a half-naked woman, you've never been more aware of how little you know anatomy. Yeah, but it's also motivated Jessie. And motivated Jessie can make her body whatever she wants. So yeah. I don't know. What are we gonna do? So. Did we ever make a comprehensive list of the things in this game that need to change? or ideas in this game that were squandered? How about that? Because we were talking about the knighting thing, the whole ragdoll introducing the idea of sorceresses knighting people, thus making them more powerful and increasing their bond, and that being a sort of precursor to the junction system, and that's a pretty cool idea. It also explains a bit more about the whole Kyle TM situation, also Cheery Simon and Jimmy Dishy. So that's a way that you could expand that idea. Akira is looking around online at various compression gloves because their right hand isn't doing so well right now. Oh, no. But otherwise okay. Recently finished a book and you're thinking about drawing ideas and vibing and watching a good stream. Wonderful. Well, I won't interrupt you. Yeah, well, hopefully you can find something good. Hopefully you can find something that works at the very least. Yeah. That's why you decided to draw Motivate as copyright. She could have her tits out as a treat. You know, it's a weird mood Tuesday. You can do what you like. Just like copyright, you're not going to tell her what to do. She's topless and has a gun. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you want to ask her, you know, why she's topless, then, you know, the answer's on the stream. And the answer is on the screen. So, yeah. What else is there? The ideas in this game that are squandered. They never really went anywhere with the whole... I mean, the Ancients. The Ancients are a bit of a thing in Final Fantasy games. They tend to get used quite a lot, basically, as a kind of Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. It's like, oh, look, this city can fly. I literally meant that as in a different one of the earlier Final Fantasies, and I've just realised that's what happened in 8. But it was a school rather than a city, so whatever. They never really went anywhere with anything. Exactly, and I want to, in this stream, it would be nice if we could sort of explore some of the ideas that they didn't do anything with, that, you know, maybe we could turn it into something else. Because again, like, you know, Ragdoll's idea about sort of sorceresses and knighting and stuff like that, you don't need Final Fantasy for that to work. That could just be turned into a story, you know? Also, I just realised I draw Jessie McCree's hair similar to the way I draw Velma's. It's interesting. I also like how the one-off joke about Jessie McCree having a bin on his head is just there. It's just that followed him throughout the story, which, given that he didn't do anything useful after disc 1, meant it didn't crop up very much. It's called the red flag haircut, yes. So yeah, okay, so ancients. The idea, there's an ancient civilization, and they built a whole bunch of stuff, and they built flying cities as well. We also get to uncover the place where Eden is. That's apparently an ancient thing, I guess. Like, how much of this... In a sense, the ancient thing is it's kind of better left not known, but at the same time, that just gives the writers the excuse to do whatever the hell they want. So... Deus Ex Machina. I'm not a fan of Deus Ex Machina, and I watch Doctor Who, so... More fool me, I guess. So what could you do with the ancients? Maybe like... Okay, here's the thing that never made sense to me in Final Fantasy VIII. Just remember, wasn't Floral Jessie like an ancient or a descendant of something? Exactly, yes, that's the thing in Final Fantasy VIII. In Final Fantasy VII, Floral Jessie was the last of the Cetra, or the ancients, who were the people who could communicate with the planet. I believe they were the original inhabitants of the planet before something else happened. Something to do with Jessie Mom crashing into the planet on an asteroid or something. Either way, there was a war and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a big part of Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VI, I guess the Espers are the equivalent. Final Fantasy V, you have the floating city in that, and a bunch of other ancient technology that's just sort of underground. There is a reference to that later in the story, but spoilers. You would think that the floating, ancient technology underground and a floating city would be spoilers in and of itself, but that's like the first half of the game. 5 does stupid things, but it's also, it knows it's doing stupid things. 5 is a parody, it's great. I don't know if there's any ancient, ancient stuff in 4, I guess, like there's, the dwarves and space people. I still haven't finished that game. I need to finish that game at some point. So yeah, ancient, the ancients, arguably the entire story of Final Fantasy X is all about the ancients, but I don't think there's anything in 9. Well, I guess there is, actually, near the end. Anyway, point being, ancients is a thing. It's one of those recurring themes in the games, even though the games don't really have anything in common. Ancients and tomberies, that's all you need to know. You need to finish 4 too, yeah. I finished, got pretty far but never finished. I've played the game, I think 4 times now. And each time I've gotten further than the last, but every single time I've had to walk away from the game. And when I come back, I've completely forgotten where anything is and where I need to go. And rather than looking up a walkthrough and spoiling it for myself, I'm like, oh, I'll just start again. But I get further. Each time I do get further. I do want to finish that game at some point. Apparently it is one of the better ones. And I do like it, but it's definitely one of the ones that's a lot sort of twisty-turny in its story. Not necessarily in terms of, like, plot twists, but in terms of, like, there's a lot of people going in and out of your party, It's one of those ones where the more characters, the merrier. Yeah, so... And, not a lot of them survive. I don't mind, I'm not going to do a draw through of 4. I'll do 5, probably not 6. It's a good game from what you saw, yeah. Good by Final Fantasy standards, anyway. We'll talk more about this in the near future for reasons. They had to make it overly and needlessly complicated. It wouldn't be a Final Fantasy game if they didn't. Yes. What is the simplest Final Fantasy? I'd say 1, but it's only simple because nothing connects. Like, it's just a series of, like, this is the world, you do a bunch of tasks in the world, and then you go to the future. And it's like, okay. Is it the future or space or something? Something weird happens. I haven't played 2. 3 is basically the same as 1, in a sense. You just go to a bunch of places in the world that are disconnected. But it's a sort of generic medieval fantasy world, so you kind of give it a pass. 4 is a lot more nonsense. 5 is, nonsense with a nod and a wink. But also some quite cool ideas. I don't think Final Fantasy being simple belong in the same sentence. Yeah, exactly. Wasn't this first one meant to be the studio's last hurrah? It was. That's why it's called Final Fantasy, because it's like this is our last chance. We're gonna, if this doesn't work, we're gonna, go bankrupt or whatever. Yeah. So, and that's why you get the absurdity of something like Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy 16, which is coming out soon, apparently. Which is just an absurd idea, really. Yeah. By the way, Jesse McCree, I mentioned before that Jesse McCree's limit break is basically just shooting a bunch, but you can choose what ammunition you use to shoot, and they all have different effects. One of them is called demolition ammo, and I just thought it'd be fun to draw a wrecking ball on top of a gun. So yeah. Oh, it's the bad xylophone player. Someone pointed out to me the other day that, whilst etymologically correct, xylophone and glockenspiel sound like they're the wrong way around. And now I can't get over that. Because xylophone sounds, just the word sounds bright, and glockenspiel sounds like, like a clonk, like a wooden thunk. But it's the wrong way around. The glockenspiel is metal, xylophone is wood. I blame German myself, but I don't know why I'm blaming German, but I'm pretty sure xylos is Greek or Latin, but he came in like a wrecking ball. He did. Yeah, I believe that's just like really slow but really powerful explosions. They hit everybody. It's good. I think his most powerful one is pulse ammo, which is like plasma, sort of big old plasma blast, which is also used to make Simon's last weapon. Weapons in this game are weird. You manufacture them out of bits, and in my experience, I just never do. I never upgrade weapons. You just have the starting weapons for the rest of the game. It doesn't matter. Junctioning is more important. Because I'm not going out of my way to grind for, pulse ammo or dragon fangs or whatever. You could probably blame Germany for glockenspiel. That's what I was thinking. Glockenspiel sounds vaguely Germanic. Pretty sure xylophone is Greek and or Latin. So I blame the lack of communication between those great languages. It's like, oh wait, get yourselves together. Be more onomatopoeic. Because there are some words that are like, they sound like what they are, even though that's like not literally. Like an onomatopoeia is like, bang or thud or whatever. But there are some words that just sound appropriate for the thing they're describing. Like I always thought blancmange was pretty self-descriptive. Like you couldn't hear the word blancmange and kind of not know kind of what it is. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like gusset, same sort of thing. You get an idea just by the sound of the word. Wrecking ball. Well, that might just be me. But yeah. There are just some words that sound like what they're supposed to be describing. They just give a sense like blancmange. It just sounds like you know what I mean? That's a blancmange, just like blancmange. Yeah, and gusset just sounds like somebody who is disgusted at something. And that sounds appropriate. German glockenspiel, literally play of bells. Oh. Blancmange. Blank Mangy. Blancmange. You probably call it something else, obviously. You have your own language. Blancmange. 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 To be honest, my main apparently they're a pop duo as well. Blancmange. No, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, the only interaction I really have with Blancmange is the Monty Python sketch of the Blancmanges from outer space abducting people so that they can win Wimbledon. No, they don't abduct people, they turn people into Scotsmen. That's it. It's important to get these things right, you know. Anyway, enough of scrolling through Blancmange images. What are we doing? Okay, so what can we do with the ancients in this story? What else is not explained that should be explained? That we could use the ancients for? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe the custard people are descendants of the ancients. This is what I was thinking. Because the design for the space potato, which was apparently built by Norg, or at least commissioned by Norg, bears an uncanny resemblance to Eden, and that sort of thing. Their design is very similar, it has a lot of things in common. Now that's probably just because that's the design they wanted for the game, but I like to think that there's actually a connection there. That, you know. Xylophone from the Greek xylophone, wood, wood, and xylos meaning wood, xylon meaning wood. And phone, sound voice literally meaning sound of wood. So it's the play of bells and the sound of wood. Let me bring you sounds from the wood. Again to Google Translate. Okay, tell me what Blancmange. Dutch translation, Blancmange. you may just never have heard of Blancmange, which is perfectly acceptable. I don't think without Monty Python, I probably wouldn't have heard of it either. Doesn't look like something I'd like, but you think you just don't know what Blancmanges are, and that's no one's going to blame you for that. Yeah, I would have assumed that there would be a different Dutch word for blancmange, purely because blancmange sounds and looks French. So I didn't know whether there would be a Germanic equivalent. You have a lot of French words in your language? Oh, okay. Well, I guess lots of loan words, yeah. Its rank looks similar to Angel Delight. Yeah, but I like Angel Delight. In a kind of, you know, we didn't have much money growing up kind of way. You know, if I didn't have it as a kid, maybe I wouldn't, but it's nostalgic, alright? That's interesting. Apparently my connection on OBS is like dwindling, but the bitrate is stable. That was really weird. Well, no, I'm not gonna have parsnips with Angel Delight, that's disgusting. That'd be cannibalism for a start. There's nothing wrong with Angel Delight apart from all the things that are wrong with it, but I like it anyway. It's like fake cheese, sliced cheese. Oh, there goes the bit, right? There we are. Yeah, it's like that sort of fake cheese that you get in like individual plastic slices, plastic packet slices, which incredibly bad packaging. Way too much plastic for what is not really worth it. But I do quite like it because as soon as you stop thinking it's cheese, because it isn't, it starts being its own thing, and it's like, oh, okay, it's got a use. It's got a weird sort of curdy use. Usually even like burgers and stuff. More posture. I was leaning badly. Sorry, Blob. Sorry, Flynn. I was trying my best. I wasn't actually. I forgot. Okay. Custard people. So the Custard, Blancmange, and Angel Delight people, they are descendants of the ancients. And they sort of passed down the knowledge of their architecture, even though they didn't necessarily pass down the technology associated with it. And as a consequence, that explains why the Space Potato can fly, and all of the mechanisms that were built onto the top of the Space Potato integrated into the flying mechanism, which nobody apparently knew about. And they were just like, oh, you know, we're Custard people. You know, we know this architecture, we can integrate that, that's absolutely fine, even though they had no idea it was a flying machine. Because why would they think something called a shelter is a flying machine? We were fed on that as a kid, also due to lack of pennies in the house. It was grim times. We had to eat food that was, you know, designed to be stored in the event of a nuclear apocalypse. It was designed with storage in mind, not nutrition. Here's a custard friend. Yeah, so that's an interesting way to explain why the potato flies, and why the whole mechanism sits in place and makes sense. Is that the Custard people were ancients. This is old Custard. You know, it then also gives a reason for A, the Custard people to exist in the story, and B, why they are so different from humans, and yet they have their own civilization. It's because they've been around for longer than humans have. But their civilization sort of grew and then shrunk, as civilizations tend to. You know, I was about to say, you know, like the Romans, but they're still humans, so that doesn't really... You know what I mean? Like the dinosaurs. Yeah, also apparently there was a big meteor that wiped out a lot of the ancients, so it's understandable why there aren't many left. Does anybody want to just screenshot this and tweet it out and say, hey, this is Crispy Streams in a nutshell? Do you think they worship Angel Delight? Absolutely, that's what Eden is. That was Eden's original name. Was Angel Delight. No, don't actually do it. So Eden, what was it? It sort of looked like blur, like that. Rather than the world being on the back, it's just a lovely bowl of Angel Delight. You're making me actually want Angel Delight. It's always a disappointment when I have it. You know that. But you're making me want it. Did it? No. Really? You both did. Oh dear. Right. To be more professional, link my Twitch. Look. Tweeting a picture of old custard. And professional. We both kept there may be many reasons, but it doesn't matter. That was an important part of it. That's an important part of everything I draw in these things. I wonder how many followers I'm going to lose because of that. 957. Remember that number. Right. So now we've solved the problem of Angel Delight and the custard people. What else is there in the game that is not used that could have a purpose? You're going to gain 12. That's your prediction. It'd be wonderful to go over 960. I'm sure I mentioned this before, and it's not. It's one of those things that doesn't matter. It's just a curiosity for me. I've been between 940 and 960 followers for about a year on Twitter, and it's just weird that I keep losing people and gaining people and losing people and gaining people, but never going outside of those bounds. Always within a range of 20, and it's really weird. Those who leave are cowards. Those who leave are yellow-bellied custard people. So yeah. A lot of them didn't choose to leave when I spammed the deacons. So that's a good sign. What was I saying? Other things that aren't really used. We found a use for. It feels weird. We found a use for Pikachu's mum. That's a weird sentence. In as much as we had this idea of sort of familial relationships being the focus of the story rather than love. And so that can be like a big thing. And at the end you're like, oh, you need to hold on to the people who are close to you and who you love, and Pikachu can hold on to his mum. So that's nice. You know, the more I think about it, the more strange it is that time was involved in 8. Because like 7 set a good standard, as did 6. Like 6 and 7 were kind of like okay, this is what these games are going to be like from now on. We're going to move away from these old medieval fantasy stories and go into a more sort of modernish fantasy world. And neither of them really messed around with stuff like that. Like, they go in Final Fantasy VII. You go into space, but you go into space in a rocket. Like it's modern space exploration. It's and there's some weird metaphysical stuff going on at the end with going into the center of the Earth. But that's going into the center of the Earth. We already know the live stream is a place that can get into your brain and do all sorts of weird things. So why can't the middle of the Earth? It's just weird that 8 decided, you know what, we're going to bring back the ideas of going to spaces between universes and travelling through time and the void and all these sorts of things. It's like, why? You want all of that in a game that also has 1950s Paris? What? Do you know, I read a thing about a live stream of the live stream, yes. I'm just going to leave this on stream, by the way. See if anyone turns up from those tweets. So, nothing's changing, it's just these. Angel Delight and Old Custard. I should draw Blancmange as well. What would Blancmange be in? What is going on with my connection? It's really weird today. I'm not really dropping anything, but it just keeps giving me warnings. Even though nothing's changing? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, what would Blancmange be? How can we tie Blancmange into the Final Fantasy VIII universe? I'm pretty sure I was saying something, wasn't I? Oh yeah, why did Final Fantasy VIII bring time and all that back into it? Like, I don't know, it feels a weird thing to do. I was reading about people who made Final Fantasy, it was either 5 or 6, and the way they wrote it was just like 2 people had sort of alternate shifts in the creative room, in the creative department of Square Enix or whatever it was, just Square I guess back then, and basically one of them would finish work, leave, the other one would come in, read what they've written, and then go, we can do better than that, and then just sort of add more things and then change it, and then they would leave, and then the next person would come in and go, oh, I like that, but we can do better than that, and then so on and so forth. I feel like Final Fantasy VIII was that, but they didn't bother reading what anyone else wrote. So they were just like, oh, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. Just like a whole bunch of people all writing simultaneously. And so we ended up with Old Custard. Problem is, I was just thinking we could probably turn, Blancmange into some sort of flying school. But our flying schools are already a space potato and space pancakes, so it's a lot of food. I introduce a lot of food into these things. If there's a way you want to make something absurd, make it an animal or food. Yeah, it's just kind of odd that they bothered to bring it all back. A draw pile for game development. We should do a draw pile. I haven't done a draw pile for ages. Also, there was a new one, wasn't there? There's like a one based on a web browser. Why are people liking these tweets? Oh, it's missing Kira. That's that seems fair. Yeah, so also, why do my mentions only include Mrs. One? Oh, that's because Chibi didn't include my name. That's fair enough. Yeah, we should do a draw pile at some point. We should try and design a better game than this. Because you didn't have me. That's fair. Given you being nice and you're out here. Sorry! I was just confused. I thought it would be other people. And I'm like, why? Also, it says 3 people liked it, but I could only see 2. I guess someone's got their settings to private. Because they didn't want anybody to know that they liked Old Custard. That's fair. You're trying to go under the radar, which is why you told you I sent the tweet. Okay. I guess radars can't detect chat. Makes sense. What else is there in these games that could be developed? No. Speaking of this piece of music. No. I just dropped my pen. These streams are just so professional. I've been doing this for 2.5 years and just, the quality, it just keeps increasing exponentially. No. The pianist from the past. What, can we give her something to do? Other than just be Cheery's mum? There is something I quite like about the idea of, a love fated to happen, and even if the 2 people who didn't, who had a spark but they were torn apart by war or whatever, it turns out their children meet up and they were in love. Which begs the question, I assume they wouldn't have fallen in love if they were actually brother and sister, but I don't know, there's something there that could work. It's just she exists in a cutscene.
So quality. Much professional.
There we go. Just wanted both of those things on screen at the same time. And this music as well. This is I send this music along with my CV just to give it context. So yeah, is there anything we could do with No? She is in the past, which doesn't help. It's difficult to do something with a character when they're in the past, and the entire story of the past takes place around a single person. who is an idiot. And who basically has nothing to do. Just give no more screen time. Yeah, but how? Like, unless you include her in Jimmy's story a little bit more, but then that would detract from... She was like there once, and they had one awkward conversation. Like, I don't want to go back to minimum viable product territory, but it probably would be better just to cut her out, to be honest. No more screen time. Oh no. Oh no. No. I like how my bot, the 0 in that open face, has a line through it to indicate that it's a 0 and not a capital O, so it looks like you've got a toothpick in your mouth. Bloody iPad, big lag and awful touchscreen keyboard. Touchscreen keyboard. I will never mock bad spelling for somebody who's using a touchpad. Knowingly, anyway. So, speaking of knowingly, no. What to do with... Why did we call her No? I don't remember why we called her No. Was it one of those things where I was like, you need to come up with this character's name, and then somebody said no. And I was like, okay. Same hat. Oh dear. Wow, that was a lot of drop frames there. That just happened instantaneously. Out of that. No was short for piano. She played the piano. She's literally defined. She is defined by half of her job. That's worse than being defined by your job. You're defined by slightly less than half of your job. 40% of your job. Which is her only character trait. She also wanted to sing. And she eventually did. And that's how the game got a song in it. That might be the only reason that exists, is because they wanted a love song in the game. So they got one. Which is also called Eyes on Me, which is a bit creepy. Although that was always something I wanted to try and work into a Drawfee thing. Was the No's game in the original... No's name in the original game... These sentences, they just melt my brain. Is Julia. And I quite like the fact that Julia wrote a song called Eyes on Me. That felt apt for Drawfee. But I can never work out a way of actually using it somewhere. Yeah. Old custard. So no, what can you do with no? Again, there's not really any context. Like, presumably we can meet her later, right? Like, if we want to incorporate her into the story, maybe we can get her side of the story of what happened by meeting her in the future. Presumably she wouldn't... There's no reason for her to be dead, right? So she should be around. So many eyes. I also quite like the fact that in that first flashback that we had, you decided to name our characters Jim, Jimmy, and Jen. And yet, the only character that does actually have a J name, Julia, you decided to call No. So, she dies. I don't know. I don't know what happens to her. I assume, maybe? We never see her. I'm gonna look this up. She has a successful song career. But you just never hear of her again. Eyes on Me. She's shy, reserved, and benign. I.e., we didn't want to write a character, so we just made her female. Female. Everyone knows what that means. Shy, reserved, and polite. Female. Oh dear. Was in position in military. She was killed in a car accident. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but she was just killed in a car accident. Oh, no. Oh, that's story writing right there. Oh dear. Also, Cheery's dad's name is Fury? What? I quite like the fact that we called her Cheery now. I know. I just know him as General Caraway. I know his name was Fury. Come on, she died in a car crash. Why? Like, there's no reason for her to be dead. She could be elsewhere. She could be on tour. Like, if you want to write her out of the game, she doesn't have to be dead. Oh dear. Yeah, still you love that they just went for the car accident. This game has 2 wars in it. Yeah. Yeah. No and what do we call the general's name? What do we call the general? Oh, Fury. Let's say. No and Fury married and built a life together in Jimson City. They had a daughter, Cherry. Fury advanced his position in the military to become head general, while No continued to write and perform songs. Their happiness was shattered some years later when No was killed in an automobile accident. Is that really? Jen Errol, okay. As opposed to Jenny Eric. Hi, I'm Jenny Eric. No relation. I didn't think there would be. Yeah. Jen Errol plot device. I mean, how many people in the game could we call that? I also like how appearance. There is a bit in this wiki about appearance, and it says No is a tall, pale young woman with shoulder-length dark hair tucked behind her ears. She wears a long red spaghetti strap halter-neck satin dress with a split up the left side, a gold cuff on her left wrist, and black high heels with crisscrossing straps. That's the appearance section. About 80% of that are her clothes. She's so unremarkable. Yeah, it's the music that describes my mental state right now. Okay, so what can we do with No other than kill her in a car crash? Can't believe that. You know, clothes make 80% of a woman. I mean, wrap up warm. That seems fair enough. A very fan fiction description. I mean, this is the wiki. The bar is so low with this one. I know, it's like, usually I say, hey, here's this plot element. Like, what can we do to make it more interesting? And this time it's literally, I didn't even know this was a thing and it made me laugh when I read it. What can we do with it? So how old was she when that was all happening? I was 22. Just like have someone be a fan of her music? I mean, maybe like you know, maybe somebody like, okay, let's have Pinches and Patches do some more stuff. Pinches has an interest in magazines. I won't go into any more details than that. So maybe he collects magazines, and those magazines talk about pop stars and things like that. And he maybe has an interest in some magazines that talked about Julia and had like biographies of No, and had like biographies of No and things like that. So he knows a lot about. And the more magazines you get, the more story you can learn about No's history. And you get like flashbacks to, you know, the life that No led after meeting Jimmy, and then like the car crash. So yeah, like there is scope to have this as a story, and also to let, you know, Pinches do something other than have stomach cramp. I should also specify Final Fantasy VIII has a bit of a thing for magazines. There's a lot of magazines in Final Fantasy VIII. Pikachu learns some of his fighting combos from magazines, and everybody learns how to get new weapons from magazines. You learn how to get what did we call it? The train? We gave it a silly name. There it is. Dwittle. Yes, you learn how to get Dwittle from magazines. So I don't see why you can't learn about things from the past from magazines. Like, it's unlikely that there will be magazines explaining the story of Jimmy. But no, she's like a fashion, not fashion. Sorry, I forgot that she's 80% clothes. They will give the magazines a function. Yes, there are literally magazines you pick up in the game. I don't even know what happens when you do. Like, hang on, there are things called Timber Maniacs magazines, and you can just pick them up. There's like one in each place. And I never get them. So what is the actual effect of getting all of them? Timber Maniacs magazine. Repercussions. If the player reads Timber Maniacs number 1, blah, blah, blah. If the player reads Timber Maniacs number 9, is every issue of the Timber Maniacs Bar 1 player finds and an article on Jimmy. Oh, you just learn more about Jimmy, I guess? How does that make sense? I guess he wrote them. He wanted to be a travel writer. Did he actually become a travel writer? Oh, he did? Okay, that makes sense. So he definitely wrote a write about No. He became a president. I don't know when in his storyline he became a travel writer. I guess after... No. When did he become a travel? Oh, he did it while trying to find Dishy. Really? I would have thought he'd have more important things on his mind. He went on to write many articles about various places in the world during his journey of rescuing Dishy. Yeah, now that's not the time to start a career. Exactly. Okay, that's a weird plot hole I never even knew about. Sure, the man got to live and pursue his dreams. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, the pianist he fell in love with had a car crash and died, and the person he left behind in Win Hill died in childbirth. Yay! Don't fall in love with this man. It's dangerous. Oh, yep, sit up straight, thank you. What were those letters abbreviating? Oh, SMH, yeah. I always forget that one as well. I forget most of them, to be honest, because, you know, young people and their acronyms, honestly. I remember being outraged as a teenager. Outraged, I say, at people writing LOL. It's like, just write ha, ha ha, something like that. Don't write LOL, honestly. God. I remember that being such a thing. And now it's just like, How many acronyms are there? I lose count. Oh, you thought the Dwittle ones? I have absolutely no idea what that stands for. No, I can't remember what that stands for at all. Oh, you did mean above Dwittle. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that's something I need to do. I need to do the highlights for Cthulhu. Speaking of going mad. So, yeah. Gippy Uimi Dwittle. I have no idea what that stood for. That laugh will haunt you. It will haunt you. Okay, so I like the idea that instead of learning more about Jimmy, because I don't even know what you do learn about Jimmy. Yeah, what do you learn about Jimmy? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What do you actually learn about Jimmy? Entries. Jimmy writes about the time he went to the editor of he bought. Okay, he didn't sell his first story. He was it? It's just a picture of the place that he went where the big crystal was. He's a sucky travel road, apparently. Hotel in Timber has got Cambodian soldiers. You'll find soldiers there, but there's a little too much. Picture is Timber was occupied by Albania. It still is! This is a picture of when Timber was occupied by Galbadia. You never... Do you remember that in Disc 1? Do you remember when we were hired to save Timber, to what's the word? Liberate Timber. At no point did we do that. According to this, apparently they just stop at some point. Why are these articles from that period? That's because that... Jenny, stop, please, you're smarter than this. Why are these articles from that period? That's because that was the period Laguna wrote the articles. I wonder how old he is now. It's still occupied! Sorry, Jimmy, not Laguna. According to Jimmy, he ended up here when he got lost on the Esther continent. Oh, that's quite nice. It's fisherman's... Went to Balam. He ran out of money to stay at the hotel. Oh, this is wonderful stuff. We could be learning about No's interesting life, but no, we're learning that Jimmy likes hotel rooms. Seems like Jimmy gets lost a lot. Well, that's good for a travel writer, isn't it? You met the custard people? Okay, that's just, that literally has nothing to do with Laguna, that one. I should be reading these out, doesn't I? Shouldn't I? No, it's hotel rooms. Does Jimmy have a house? No. Jimmy's president, but he stays in a hotel room at Essos all the time. Is now your favourite headcanon. That's fair. I don't think we find whether he has a palace, but I don't think we ever find any rooms in it. Like, you know, living rooms, as it were. In one of Jimmy's articles, he wrote about how he tried to get to Esther. He tried to get to many different routes, but he eventually ended up in Dolit. What? That's on the other side of the planet. He does get lost, doesn't he? According to the article, Jimmy gambled to try and cover travel expenses. But he lost it all, and told how dangerous gambling can be. Well, at least he learned his lesson after doing it once. That's fair. These are travel, like, these are things he's writing about in a magazine. I lost all of my money gambling. Well done, Jimmy. Jimmy's in a movie. Plus, it looks like it was shot near Trebia. That's the cheese. Bet he can't act. He speaks way too highly of himself in the article. Find it strange we don't see. Ah, okay. So that's the one that says, "Oh, we don't see Jim in that scene." How did he become president? Oh, pure happenstance. He writes himself proudly. He writes proudly of it in the article. A pub somewhere, plus the owner. Where's this? Oh, this is in Win Hill. This is Jessica. Know where it is. Won't say though. Out of respect for Jimmy. It's important. He shouldn't have published it in a magazine. Yeah, he's an idiot. Jimmy, finally in Fisherman's Horizon. This is where he finally made it to Esther. Finally. So it's true, you can get there from Fisherman's Horizon. By that time, there were no more trains, so Jimmy walked it. Jimmy walked it as well. That's good to know. Jimmy also walked a quarter of the way around the Earth. Like father, like son. Jimmy's in high spirits after finding out he had to walk there. Apparently he likes walking, that's fair. At least he's not carrying somebody on his back. According to this article, this is Estes. Apparently, happy Jimmy made it to Estes, but is this real? City so cool. Nothing on the continent where Estes is. Okay, so that's literally nothing. We learned nothing apart from the fact that Jimmy's also an idiot, which we knew. We already knew Jimmy was an idiot since the first time he appeared on screen. That's fair. Should we go back to those heydays? Back to those heady days before anything to do with time. With a dance. Pinches and patches. There they are. Look at them. How had a good old time. Jim, you could have done something in the plot, couldn't you? Question, is Jim a MacGuffin? Because the only thing I can think of that Jim actually did in the plot was be in the prison. Like, he worked in the prison while Jimmy was in Win Hill and Jen went to visit. Jim was working in the prison so that when Pikachu woke up, he was like, I had a dream about this place, I know where everything is. So is Jim a MacGuffin? Both Jim and Jen could have done more. Like, Jen at least, you know, had a nice little chat with Jimmy and, you know, met up with him, helped him patrol the place, and then gave him a little context about the outside world, told him that there's a travel opportunity thing going on. Anyway, what I've ascertained out of this whole thing is that picking up the magazines is absolutely pointless, and that there should actually have been a story about No in there. I think we could write an interesting story about No. I don't know, maybe Jim gets a job as No's bodyguard or something. Yeah, I'm quite surprised that there is literally no reward for getting all the magazines. It just doesn't do anything. You get all that wonderful information I just told you. Jimmy's an idiot and he gambles. He gets lost. He tries to go somewhere and ends up literally on the other side of the planet. Or I should specify on the other side of a continent, which is pretty significant. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like... Because, like, do we want to add more to this? Like... Because, like, you could flesh out No's story of, like, you know, the trouble it took her trying to be taken seriously as a singer, and, like, oh no, did she, you know, maybe she had to sort of cave in and use the influence of a powerful man to do it, and she's like, oh, did I actually do it from my own thing? But then she breaks off and does something else herself, and she's like, oh no, actually, people do like the thing that I make, it's got nothing to do with the money investment or whatever, and then she becomes, well, famous. You could do something like that. But this is Final Fantasy. Like, why would we want to know any of that? Like, you have to say that you're now imagining Jimmy as Estes' president, but also the local homeless man who feeds the pigeons and sleeps in different shitty hotel rooms every night. Yeah, seems fair. Like, it's I guess it's refreshing to have a politician who isn't, like, in it for the money. But yeah, I'll lead you. I'll do all the admin and so on and so forth. But, you know, I like feeding pigeons. And they've got some really good tea and coffee making facilities at the hotel, so... If you tried their kettles, they're really quick. Also explains why he wears shorts on the job. That's just Jimmy. Everyone else is wearing, like, robes and stuff. No, it's just Jimmy. Calm down, you. Okay, you could do something with no. I feel like, okay, I think we've explored the idea of no story being explained in the magazines. That's something you could do that would make the magazines meaningful and actually flesh out No's character a bit. So you could actually have some sort of story as to how she got where she was, and she didn't have to die in a car crash. Oh dear. I'm laughing about the car crash. I just can't believe it. like I know Final Fantasy is stupid, but I didn't realize it was that stupid. Yeah, I know. It's just like I somehow expected better of this series. Like, is there a Final Fantasy game where the female characters aren't cliched or abused? Like, I don't think so. Because like even like strong Jessie in Final Fantasy VII, she's in the story. She is basically Sonic's emotional crutch. That's her whole deal in the story. And you know, Floral Jessie, obviously that doesn't end very well. They're women, 80% clothes and 20% death fodder. The only way they can't die is if the bullet is stopped by the clothes. That's how it works. If she was wearing more clothes, she wouldn't have died in the car crash. Would have reduced the impact. Note to any fictional female characters in Final Fantasy games: wear more clothes, then you'll be immune to more of the plot nonsense. Wasn't wearing a gamer dress. Ah, there you go. I've just realised I only know one female character in Final Fantasy XV, and they clearly haven't learned their lesson. To like, oh, we can make deep female characters. No. Like, I mean, I've just seen your drawing on Twitter of motivated Jessie, and like in terms of revealing outfits, the main female character that I know of in Final Fantasy XV is not far off. Yeah, her. Sidette, or whatever her name is. You try not to think of her. That's acceptable. So yeah, here's... actually, I was just about to show that. This probably can't on Twitch. Thanks, Twitch. Thanks for your terms of service. And by that I mean Chibis. Everyone go to twitter.com/ChibiNetherlands, Mini Netherlands, and have a look at Good Art. Sidette is not, no, Sidette, because it's like, oh, I guess in our version it should be like Flyette. Flyette's quite nice. It's like Lafayette, but Flyette. Yeah, because our version of Sid, which is there's always a Sid in a Final Fantasy game. Our version of Sid is Fly. So you've got it's the Peachette version of Fly. Maybe. I'm not drawing that. I want to see if it was Sid. Oh, it's 15, not 10. What's her name? I just want to know her name. Or Cindy. Okay, that makes sense. Cindy is also a kind of recurring thing. Cindy, Mindy, and Mandy. No, Cindy, Mindy, and... What is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. A couple of other female characters you vaguely remember from when you last played Final Fantasy 15, and they're not nearly as bad. Okay, that's advantageous. I actually quite, having looked this up, I actually quite like their version of Fly. It looks cool. I will try and find a good picture of him that doesn't involve his granddaughter. Look at him. That's cool. He looks alright. I like him. He reminds me of what I imagine the Final Fantasy IV Fly looks like. Only more fantasy. Less. I work in a garage. Is that General Ford? Who? General Ford? General... Well, that rings a bell, but all I can think of is Ford Prefect. That's not Ford Prefect. Just Ford? Ford. So not Ford Prefect. Is it General? Why did you put General? I don't know what you're talking about. Ford? Ford? If I type Ford into Google, I'm just going to get cars. I made 50,000 puns about him. Oh, Ford! Yes. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, kinda. He's got more sympathetic eyes. And realistic hair. What's he from? Oh, from Remnant, the character who is the most important character to the plot, but also does nothing, literally nothing, worse than nothing. Yeah, so, yeah, he looks cool. He's got a chain around his on his trousers. He's trying to be hip with the kids. Look at him. Oh. I like having older characters in these things. It's nice knowing that the entire cast isn't 17, you know? Get some cool older characters in your stories. Yeah, how are you, fellow kids? I mean, the fly in the Final Fantasy VIII is just also completely useless. Worse than useless. Like, he literally gives up his job so that a 17-year-old can take his place. Oh, he's terrible. You like it when they're older characters too. Usually Fly is an older character. Usually a mechanic of some kind. But not in this. Not in Final Fantasy VIII. Again, they just didn't. It just didn't. What's Fly gonna do? Again, there's another thing. Okay, we've sorted out no. What's Fly gonna do? Because Fly doesn't do anything. Fly is supposedly the headmaster of the school. As soon as things go topsy-turvy and the school starts flying, he literally does nothing. To the point of relinquishing command to somebody else. The most he does is remind you that he's the wife of somebody who was also important in the plot right up until she stopped being important. And as a consequence, you should care about her. As if, you know, discovering that she raised you from small children isn't enough. Fly just gives Simon his jobs. Yeah, he's like... It's like, this is yours now. Goodbye. Good luck. Yeah, we really don't. I don't know what happens to the job. Just... Because we don't do anything with it. It's like... Is anyone actually... Is any school work happening in this? I think he should at least, like, keep his job. Yeah, I feel like... okay, suddenly the school is now a moving military base, right? What you do is you take your best, still alive and still present mercenary, who in this case may very well be Simon, and you say, okay, you are now in charge of the military sort of tactics of this base. I will remain headmaster. Look, we have to. There's some suspension of disbelief here. It's a Final Fantasy game. No schoolwork. Okay, fair enough. And he will remain headmaster, but Simon will, like, be the advisor of, you know, what the next plan is and so on and so forth. I wouldn't mind, but this doesn't even have a bearing on what happens in the rest of the game. Like, at no real point, the only thing that serves to do in the story is it makes Simon do a speech just before they plow into the pancake. And if I remember correctly, our speech was... what's going on here? Our speech was, I think, rousing is the word I'm looking for. That's the orphanage of plot convenience. There's this. Before that. There we go. That was our speech. Is Simon the most experienced soldier there? Probably not. He just went on his first mission and butchered it. Like, yeah, we didn't even achieve our first mission. It's a miracle anyone put him in any form of command. It's like... I guess it's like... You know... On a slow news day, the headline of your news program might very well be dog falls off skateboard. Just because it's the most important thing that has happened that day. But if the next day your headline is nuclear war declared, that doesn't make dog falling off skateboard equally as important as nuclear war. Like, yeah, they were both headlines, but we're working in different sort of situations. I think what happens here is that everyone else is so bad at their job that Simon is just the best of an awful bunch. It's like... Okay, you're in charge. Oh, copyright song. Thank you for pointing it out. I'm talking over it, so it's not too bad, but thank you. It's usually when I'm being quiet and drawing. But thank you very much. That's very nice to keep track of it. There are a few that trigger it. The one that's really annoying is there's one called Love Grows. And that triggers copyright claim for something that isn't that. And it's like I have to keep contesting it and saying this is not the song that is triggering the copyright. If you want to claim the copyright on the actual song, go ahead, but that's not it. Guess they should just close the school if everyone's so bad. Yeah, to be fair, like literally most of the people in the school are like 8 or 10. I don't know where everyone else is. Again, this is another thing about Final Fantasy VIII, and I don't think I really got this across. Final Fantasy VIII feels so empty. Just the world feels empty. There's not enough people for it to be believable. Like, the cities are tiny, and they're like the kind of cities you would expect to be surrounded by just, you know, like Paris. Like, you think of Paris, like, okay, there's the middle of Paris, is like what you always think about. But you look at it on a map, it's like the houses around it are just huge. It's a bloody huge place. And it's not in this, you just get the middle of Paris and then nothing for miles. And there are like 10 people you meet in a city. And the game feels like it wants to build up a world that feels real, but it just feels empty. Simon's like 16, right? Something like that. 17. Were there 5 16-year-olds at this school? Like, there are some more who might be a little bit younger. like 14, 13, 14, something like that. I don't think there's anyone. There's a couple of other seed around, but they're mostly just playing cards. Like, they don't actually do anything. He sends 8-year-olds to military school. War does. But this is another thing. Like, you have something like that. You have a military school in an environment where there are lots of other things that's going on. But as far as I can ascertain, okay, there's Dollet, there's Timber, there's Jimson City, there's Windhill, but that's almost entirely populated by old people. Balam, I guess, is a small. It's a small town. It's not a city. So there's like 4 population centers in this world and 3 giant military schools. It just doesn't. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Like, if these were 3 military schools in a city, then that would make a little bit more sense. Like, they're sort of competing for, dominance in a large city or something like that. It doesn't sound right. Like, Final Fantasy VII had this to an extent, whereas, like, Midgar is this huge technologically advanced industrial location and the rest of the world is kind of rural. But it kind of makes sense because that's where the base of Shinra is and they own all of that technology, and it's isolated and everything else has been taken from all these other places and just it's built up in one location. But in Final Fantasy VIII, it's just like, again, this is why I liked my idea of time compression's already happening, the world's already a bit of a mess, and that's why everything feels like it comes from a different time and the world feels fractured. It's like, you can do that. If you write that into the story, that time compression's already started, then it can explain why there's just nothing around. Because time is being messed with. Apart from working on 3 different stories at the same time, they also worked on 3 different scales. It's just, yeah. Again, it feels like a sort of lack of... I mean, a lot of this is technological... what's the word I'm looking for? Not restriction, technological something. Technological limitation, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, a lot of this is technological limitation, the idea of making, massive cities and all these sorts of things. It's going to be difficult, and having lots and lots of towns, it's going to take up space on the discs and all that sort of stuff. But it's just like... I don't know. They bit off more than they could chew with it, really. That's that bloody xylophonist. Yeah, they really bit off more than they could chew with the idea of like, oh, we need this, big fleshed out world with cities and military schools and all these sorts of things, and they just didn't even make half of the things they needed to do to make that believable. They also have a massive prison that could probably hold the population of the entire planet. Like, there's not enough people to fit in that prison. No, there's not enough. There's not enough people to fill up that prison. That's what I mean. There's also a missile base. Like, there are 4 places you might want to target with a missile base, but you just have one. Like, things only exist in this game if they're relevant to the plot. And everything else you just assume. Like, I wouldn't even mind if there was, like, there were places on the world map, just polygons on the world map, that represent cities that you can't go into. Because they're not relevant to what you're trying to do in the story. I wouldn't mind that. But it's like, hang on, let me get up the world map. And I want to show you how sparse this is. Are military schools like totalitarian regimes? I don't know. Like, you can also understand it if it's like, okay, it wasn't that long ago and there was a massive war. That maybe there are a lot of cities that were just destroyed, Show us some ruins then. Oh, Fisherman's Horizon. I forgot about Fisherman's Horizon. But that's just a bunch of hippies making things out of scaffolding. Oh, this is quite nice. Somebody made this. Okay. So here's the world map. And you've got like, okay, so here, this is the space potato, and this is Balam. So this whole island is mostly empty. It also looks like a happy skull. That's quite nice. Over here you have, I guess that's timber. So you'd like an ocean away. This is all empty. It's just timber. This is empty. Here's Dollet. This is the place where you did the big spider and all that. This is the space pancake. That's nice. Here's the prison and the missile base. So this is just all empty desert over here. This is Win Hill. No, hang on. This is Win Hill, tucked over in a corner, but everything else around it is just completely deserted. And then you've got Jimson City over there, surrounded by absolutely nothing. So it's like, okay, so in terms of population centers on this continent, we have this city, space pancake, I guess, this small town containing 5 old people, and this city here. And it's like, that's a continent. The more you hear about the schools, the more confused you get. Like a while ago, there was a massive war, so military schools as a result, but now the war's over and the military schools are fighting each other, and rebels, also the local population has to give up their children to a military school. I get it's the seed, isn't it? It's like they made it to stop the sorceress that was going to come along at some point, but yeah. That's so little, I know. And it's like, okay, this continent here, we have Space Pancake, Space Cheese is there, and the custard people are there, and that's it. Out of this lot here, that's those 2 things. And then we have Estes, which is pretty big. That's fair, I kind of understand that. Massive futuristic city, fair enough. And then just a couple of little scientific research stations. This is the space station, this is the research lab, this is the space prison place that you break Cheery out of, and this is the big obelisk hanging over Tears Point. But other than that, again, surprisingly isolated. You would think there would maybe be more than one city. You know, maybe they would split off and have like a subsidiary city over here or something. Maybe some town, somewhere to grow food. I don't know. And then down here you have the brown. You have the place that looks like it's made out of peat. Here you have the lighthouse. You have the Octagon of Doom, where you fight Odin and the Tomberries. This is the White Seed ship. That's about it. Yeah, that's about it. This is a space pancake, I think, from when you fight it. Yeah, there's just an orphanage here. Again, bit of a sense of perspective. Right, here's an orphanage. Okay, you want to build an orphanage for children at the end of a war, right? Okay, let's put it literally the furthest point away from any like population on the planet. Like, how you couldn't get much further away from anything else. How does it get food? Like, for some reason you thought Essos was there. You thought it was like off on its own island. It's off on its own continent. But yeah, it's just like there is just so little in this world. Everyone on this planet just hates children. Like, I could, if I just like, this is just turned into me complaining, but it's fine. So there's the orphanage, there's Timber, there's Dollet, there's whatever that was. What was it? Ah, whatever. Space Potato. Oh, that's Jimson City. Win Hill, Space Potato, Balam. There's the Space Cheese, there's the Custard People, there's Estes. Again, just a bit of sense of scale problem going on here. These are not really occupied by anyone, they're just places of work. And Fisherman's Horizon. So if we just look at the map on its own, this is the world. These are the population centers of the world. No one lives anywhere but this. And it's like, what's the point? Like, if these were villages in a medieval world or whatever, I'd understand. I get it. But they're not. They're cities with cars and electricity. And it's, I don't know. Pretty much have to go through Estus to get to Space Cheese, right? No. No, Space Cheese is up here. There. Oh, I see what you mean. If you want to go on land, no, this is all blocked off. You can't, there's a big old fence around this. No, if you want to get to Space Cheese, you have to go through the water and go up a beach and go that way. Because remember, the Space Potato can swim through water. Hence the little sailor hat. Yeah, the only way into Estus is via the... Again, quick reminder. That's how far we walked. That was ancient technology that pretty much no one knew about. Good point, yeah. I mean, we have boats. Boats are a thing. Like, we drive boats. You know, one of the first things we do in the game is we go from here to here via boat. We go and do our exam from a boat. But even then, like, if, you know, we're going to go here, okay, we'll go here on a boat, and then we'll just walk, like, longer than we did here to get... I presume we have, like, you know, all-terrain vehicles or something. Then we decided to build another bridge. No, apparently not. We have this tunnel. We have this train tunnel going under here. This allows us to get to Timber. So we've got the channel tunnel, basically. Which, I mean, hell of an engineering job. That's a bloody long tunnel. But again, I don't believe that a world that looks like this could do that. Like... I also don't believe that a world that could have built this bridge decided not to build another bridge rather than digging under the sea for that long. Like, this bridge is still standing, and it really just exists as an obstacle. If you want to get around it, you have to go up here and then around. But yeah. And it's just like a world that is this sparsely populated has a need for this massive prison, and a need for this missile base, and a need for... I don't know, it's just like... It's nothing. This world is just mostly nothing. People on this continent really did just build one big bridge and decided to make it so that it was a 10-day journey on foot, and decided that was convenient enough never to build another bridge again. Yes. Well, the thing is, they stopped trains running to it because Estus was like, nah, we don't want anyone coming in here anymore. But like, there's no reason you can't build something over here. Like, there's land. Like, if I get rid of this, right? Look at this. Look at this area of land, right? This area of land here. Okay? You could fit like 2 of these cities on there. Like, you could fit like a city and another space thing on there. So you got a use for this massive bridge rather than putting it out in the middle of nowhere. Getting to this would be less convenient than getting to this, right? But even then, even if you didn't want to use the bridge, how about any of this land? That would be great. Like, okay, like... People complain a little bit about Final Fantasy X. They say it's a bit linear and it's all a bit cramped. And you don't really get to fly around an entire world. You're basically just on a series of islands. But at the very least, it feels like the scale is believable. Like, if we... Hang on. Here's... Okay. Thought experiment, right? Here's all this. Let's take Dollet. No, hang on. Let's not do that. Let's keep Dollet there. We'll take Jimson City and we'll put it here. That's a nice place for it to go. We'll take Windhill. Windhill can be on a little island over there. Isn't that nice? We can then take Balam, make it a coastal city, put it there by the coast. We'll take the Space Potato. The Space Potato can be by Balam because it's the Balam one. And we'll take the Space Pancake and we'll put it over here because it's the Galbadian one. We'll take Fisherman's Horizon. That can just be like on a bridge between these 2 islands, maybe. Have a little bridge over there. We'll take the Orphanage. The Orphanage can be maybe up here, just on a little peek out there. We can take this garden, which is also up in the north. This is the cheese, and we'll take Estes, and we will put it over here in the desert, where nobody else goes, because they think it's just empty desert. Like that. And yeah, we could also have, I don't mind having the custard people over there or something. Like, I'd believe that. That makes a bit more sense. And you've still got room down here to do other stuff if you want. Why isn't the orphanage just in a city? They wanted a lighthouse, I guess. Like, okay, you've got like, here's a city, here's a city, here's a city. They're pretty close to each other. That's believable. There's another city down here. There's a city up there. That's perfectly acceptable spread for a landmass like this. You've got these rival military organizations, which is still a bit weird, but not too bad. It makes sense that these two are the sort of the angsty ones because they're close to each other, and this one's just up here minding its own business. You got the weird people, the weird custard people on Custard Island. The orphanage over here, just staying out of the way of everything else. Oh no, hang on, was the orphanage? No, yeah, that was the orphanage, and this is the retirement home in Win Hill. And it's like, and you know, everyone goes into the desert, and they're like, oh no, it's just desert. It's a desert for miles. And then, oh no, there was actually the big hexagon in the sky, and we can go in. It's a futuristic city. Space Cheese is just vibing. Space Cheese is having a good time. Playing basketball in the snow. It's great. And it's like, I just feel like, let's just zoom out and look at what we're actually dealing with. There we go, there's my fix. Do you know what? I fixed this originally by saying, you know, let's incorporate time shenanigans into the main story, right? We don't have to do that. Just do this. I'd be happy with this. I'd be fine with this. Space Cheese isn't actually a military school anymore, they just play lots of sports. Yeah. They have a basketball court. They have a little bandstand. I don't know. It's difficult to tell what they've got because they've just been blown up. So they've got a graveyard where you can withdraw the spell zombie, which seems a little bit unfair, but whatever. Yeah, I would believe this. I would believe this a hell of a lot more. This feels less horrible. But they wanted a whole world, and they just didn't have enough stuff to fill it with, or didn't have enough space to have the things they wanted to fill it with to fill. Okay, so this rant turned into something constructive. I quite like this. This is fine. You know, if you want to have this area over here, this could be where they kept the secret missile base, and they kept the secret prison or whatever. Because it's basically cut off from the rest of the land. So they're like, oh, if we hide all the stuff down here. Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. And then maybe at the start of the game, there's like a magical force field that's like, oh, I don't know. And you're cut off from the rest of the world. Why are we cut off from the rest of the world? I don't know. Turns out it was copyright. Just screwing around with space. Or maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe a war's still happening. Or like we're at an uneasy truce at the end of a war and we just don't want to go to any of the other continents. You know. It's a good new map for our good new game. I'll take this. It also looks sort of like a happy seagull. So like, here's the plumage, here's the wings, there's the tail. Yeah. Or if you prefer, a sneezing witch. Long bridge still exists, it's just closed off, but you can see it stretch off into the distance. That's quite cool. Like a bridge that goes off into the ocean to nowhere. It's like, you can't go across there. You know, there's still military tensions going on between our continents, and that seems fair. I like the idea of that. We're isolating our focus to one continent. We know that there is a rest of the world out there. but we're isolating ourselves to this continent. This is the one that gets copyright stricken for no reason. There we go. Yeah. I mean, it makes a little bit less sense when we start going into space and stuff. And you're like, why are you restricting yourself to one continent now that you can go to space? But I don't know, maybe Estus is like a secret base set up here by one of the other continents. And they're like, ooh, let's sneak a little base over here. And by a little base, I mean something bigger than the population of literally every other place on this continent. I don't know. But I wanted to make my point about how empty this world is compared to how technologically advanced everywhere is. Know what I mean? In Final Fantasy VII, it wasn't too bad because there was one big center of technological population and everywhere else felt rural. But in this, it just doesn't make sense to have that so spread out with nothing in between. Yeah. Anyway, it's turned into a big old complainy session, but we got some stuff done. We incorporated No into the magazine situation. We understood what the custard people do with their Angel Delight. This essentially seems like this weird place and also explains why it's so futuristic. Other continents have different technologies. Yeah, it's like a kind of Cold War sort of thing. We're just not communicating with the people on the other side of the Iron Ocean or whatever. And then it turns out they've just had a massive technology boom that they just haven't told us about. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. You know, there has been a war. There was a massive war, and it was a sorceress war, but I don't really know what that means. There's another thing, sorceress war. What are we going to do with that? Is it just an excuse to have orphans as characters? I don't know. Let's end the stream because I didn't make enough drink and I'm thirsty. So yeah, that was a rant. Maybe not quite as relaxing as you might have hoped for this stream, but yeah, turned into a bit of a rant. I think I kind of needed that today. It's Weird Mood Tuesday. I was allowed a rant. Don't know how Jimmy became president of another continent's tech base. Through misadventure. Two big places in FF7 that are both centrally Shinra places, Midgar and the Golden Saucer. The Golden Saucer does stand out as being a bit weird, but it makes sense to me as it's kind of like, let's make a place that people in Midgar can go to feel better. You know? Like, it doesn't make sense how they get there, really. I mean, they go to Costa del Sol, they've got a nice little relaxing, you know, beach place, and then they can go to the Gold Saucer and have a good time, and then they can come back to Midgar and it's miserable. Like, you could make a good satire out of that. Of kind of like, oh, if given a big enough distraction, people will put up with anything. But yeah, he just stumbled into it, you would believe that. I mean, he basically did. Maybe... Okay, here's the thing. This is a very Jimmy story, right? Maybe he just looked like the leader of the resistance, who recently died, but no one knew. Like, he met somebody in the middle of the desert who looked just like him, who was dying of like a laser wound or something. And then he carried on and was like, hey, I found this dead guy in the street and he had this backpack or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're finally here. Come quickly. We need to tell you the secrets of the resistance. And like, oh, okay. That feels like a Jimmy story, you know? Case of mistaken identity, why not? You know, oh, Brian's acting a bit weird. You know, he's focusing a lot less on the military tactics and a lot more on feeding those pigeons. He's got a plan. And then he dies by car crash. Yeah. You know, I actually really like that idea. It makes so much more sense as to why he would become leader of a resistance. It's such a Jimmy story. It's not like... You wouldn't put that in a serious game. But Jimmy's story was never serious, so... Has there ever been... Have they ever done a mistaken identity thing in Final Fantasy games? It feels like it rings a bell. I can't remember. Because that's like a kind of typical... That's like the... what's the Shakespeare one? The one with the twins? I feel like that's the sort of thing that they would have done in a Final Fantasy game at some point. I mean, they kind of did that in 6 with the opera, but that was deliberate. That was like, okay, you need to disguise yourself as this person for reasons. They were like, oh, you happen to look like this person who's not here, and we need this person to be doing a thing, so would you mind doing this for us? And, oh, okay. So that's not really a mistaken identity, that was a deliberate sort of ruse. Still a coincidence. But it also gave that character a reason to exist, because otherwise what the hell do they do in the plot? Welcome to Final Fantasy VI, where no one's important. Anyway. Yeah, no, I feel like there's something in 12. Oh, okay, I haven't played that. I will play that at some point. I have it, I think. No, I don't have that. I have 13. What a wonderful choice. Something in 12, Mistaken Identity, if you remember right. Cool. I just feel like there was something in one of the older games, and I'm just... No. Weird. Anyway. So, Jimmy, a case of mistaken identity, knows biography as written in travel magazines, and dictated by Pinches. The custard people make custard architecture and know about custard things, even if they don't know exactly what it all is. And, you know, let's make the world just that little bit smaller. That's basically what we did today. That's some ideas. We came up with some ideas, and I'm pleased with that. I honestly, before this stream started, I was in Weird Mood Tuesday, and I almost just said, you know what, I don't want to do the stream today. That's why I started off doodling, because I was like, I don't really want to focus on just like analysing a story. It's like, oh god. But yeah, it turned out to be fun, so I'm glad. I always have to keep reminding myself of that. Like, no, these are fun. Like, chatting with you a lot, it is good. It's a good time. And it will make me happier to do it. So, yeah. Oh, I've just clicked over to the tab where the Final Fantasy XV stuff is. So it's juxtaposition of this old man and this lady with her boobs hanging out. It's like, anyway. We're not going to do a draw through of 15. It's fine. Some boys have a road trip. I'm sure that's the story, basically. The boys have a road trip and they fight really big things. Anyway, enough boobs. Thanks for coming along. We're going to stream here. I don't know if we're going to do another one of these next week. I don't know if there's any more we can get. I don't think there's another 2 hours we can get out of this. Feel free to chat about this in Discord or anywhere else. But maybe in terms of streams, maybe we won't do another one. We'll carry on with Opus Magnum tomorrow. Hopefully we'll finish it. And on Saturday, if we have finished Opus Magnum, maybe me and Chibi will do some Chaos Chess, which is a thing I made because chess is boring and predictable. So I thought I'd add some chaos to it. Sunday, something creative, who knows? And then maybe next Tuesday... Next Tuesday I might skip a stream just so I can get the next draw through ready. There's a bit of prep to be done, which will make sense when I start it. And then the week after that we should be able to start it, because it's not too much to do, but yeah, be sure to be in a chaotic mood this Saturday just in case. I'll make a backup just in case you're not feeling up to it. That's absolutely fine. But yeah. So yeah, maybe a couple of weeks we'll start a new draw through, and it will be something very different, and it will be something that people can get their teeth into if they want to. It's going to be an interactive one, but not in the same way as the old the Fighting Fantasy. Hi King Fed, how you doing? Not in the same way as the Fighting Fantasy ones. I wanted because they require you guys to do stuff constantly, and some of you just like to sit back and enjoy the stream. So yeah, I thought I'd come up with an idea that allows you to do as much as you want, but also as little as you want. So, yeah. Fingers crossed it's good. It's probably going to involve a lot of work from me, but it's fine. Should be fun. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming along. I'll leave you with the best piece of music from this soundtrack, which may be the last time we play the soundtrack. Who knows? We'll see. Unless I come up with a bunch of ideas for how to rewrite this game in the meantime. Yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow for Opus Magnum. If not, have a wonderful week. Enjoy yourselves and look after yourselves. Have a good time. Get some hot chocolate and or drink of your choice. And have fun. Goodbye.